Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, Psychic Medium, Holly Jordan.
Hello, this is Holly from Holly's Pandorium, and I'm here today with my very special guest, Terry, who you can find on YouTube as the Stoic Medium. Terry, I'm so excited to have you here today. You have so much on your channel that fascinates me, and so I am excited, very excited to hear about a paranormal story from you, and then I really want to hear more about what you do in your day-to-day life as a psychic medium. So please, Terry, give us your story.
Well, thanks for having me on, Holly. It was a beautiful, pleasant surprise when I got your communication. And it's like, be careful what you ask for, because I just had updated the part on my website about podcast guests. And this is my first podcast participation. So it's like, this stuff really works. It was 1987. I had moved from Georgia to California and I was on my second job. I was a computer programmer, system developer, systems analyst type person. And I was at lunch with two colleagues. And Roger asked our contract boss at the time, does John still think he's clairvoyant? In a very snarky, antagonistic, just yucky way. So the answer was yes, but there was no space for me to have any conversation about it. But the hair, I actually had hair then, stood up on the back of my neck when I heard the clairvoyant. I had never heard that term before that I could recall. A few weeks later, I was having a few beers with Sandy, who was the person who is John's friend. I said, what's up with this clairvoyant stuff? And she goes, well, I really can't tell you, but there's these classes starting in Encinitas in a few weeks. I'll get you the information. So that's how I came to be in the world of the metaphysical, the spiritualism, and the paranormal.
Interesting.
About 1 year. Go ahead. Pardon me?
That's interesting. So I have to ask really quick. So you hadn't ever thought of yourself as a psychic or weren't aware of that terminology before this time?
No.
Interesting.
I was in my late 20s, born an evangelical Christian, raised as an evangelical Christian, hated evangelical Christianity, and moved to California to get as far away as I could from the deep South where I was born and raised.
Right.
And short of Hawaii, I couldn't get much further in the continental United States, maybe Alaska. So I started classes in fall of 1987, and I was hooked, line sinker. I just fell in love with everything. Everything felt true and felt right and rang true. It was just like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because I was that guy in vacation Bible school who the instructor or the teacher or the babysitter didn't want to hear from because I always ask these weird ass questions. Oh, am I allowed to say bad words?
Yes, you are. Okay. Yes.
We didn't talk about that ahead of time.
No, we didn't. That's okay. That's okay.
So 1 year after I started classes, I didn't miss any classes for the first 2 years that I started my training and development as a psychic and medium and healer. I was Halloween night. I had rented a cabin with my then wife in Big Bear, California.
I know where that's at.
It was the night that they had the Harry Houdini seance.
Oh, fun.
On TV. And I was an aspiring psychic and medium, so I said, I got to watch this.
Sure.
And ended up not going anywhere with the seance. By this time, I had been in dark circles and seances before and participated, and it was mostly kind of But that night after the seance, and I was there with my wife in a strange place, I had a gnome at the end of the hall, just a little statue that the light was shining on. And I went to bed with pictures of this gnome in my head. And for the rest of
Interesting.
the night, I had nightmares about this gnome. But every time I woke up from the nightmare, I would see a face of a woman just standing like right next to the bed, saying it'll be okay. And I would drift back to sleep, and I didn't know, I felt totally at home and comfortable with this entity who
Right.
was standing next to the bed. And then I would go back to sleep, have a dream about the gnome, wake up, and she'd be there. And this went on and on all night. It turned out the entity was named Helen. She is a person who was a sister of mine in a past lifetime. And
Wow.
she was there helping me step out of the secular world of engineering and linear thought and rational thinking into this realm of energy in the spirit world. And it was one of those nights that both frightened the heck out of me, but inspired me that everything that the gentleman who taught me, his name was Reverend Gene C. Lahr, taught me was accurate. And that the only thing to fear about the paranormal realm is our own misunderstanding and lack of mental control. That if we have
Interesting.
absolute mental control and we are receptive and open, that there is a world beyond our physical sight that allows us to really touch into the beauty and the benevolence and the loving kindness that, in my view, religion should be,
Right.
but
Agreed.
very rarely is.
Yes. And
So
and
that's
I
my
have to
first
say
my
that's
first story.
amazing. That well, yeah. And genuinely I can say I do understand that, because sometimes the very first time you connect with a guide or some connection from another life, it's intense. I mean, it feels, if there's a fluidity to me in those connections, because it feels like someone's standing right next to you. You feel their energy, you feel their presence. It's as tangible as a live flesh and blood person right next to you, for anyone that hasn't experienced that. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that those are really important connections. And a lot of times it is startling at first, because like your self-doubt kicks in, and you're trying to make excuses in your mind. Did I really see that? Am I really feeling that? All those self-doubts creep in. And so I love that you're sharing that. That's really neat.
Yeah. It's the biggest takeaway from that evening for me was that the spirit world is real.
Yeah.
That it is available to us if we're willing to go there. And, you were asking if I was a natural, if I had any psychic or mediumship abilities before. I would say I was always intuitive,
Okay.
extremely curious,
Mm-hmm.
and open as a book. I wanted to see, touch, smell, experience virtually everything I could. And as long as it felt right, didn't harm myself or others, I was open for it.
Yeah.
And I had been training for a year to meditate, control my mind, calm my emotions, and manage fear. And what
Right.
was interesting about that night is having a dream about a statue gnome haunt my nightmares, and I'd wake up in a full-blown sweat.
Yeah.
And then having someone reassuring right next to me that I had learned to control my fear enough that the noise in my head went down, that the spirit signal I was able to
Nice.
perceive it. So that was the beginning of a 40-year, almost 40-year romance with spirituality. I was ordained a spiritualist minister in 2014,
Wow.
and have been teaching people to be psychics, mediums, and healers since 1990.
That's amazing. I love that. So that's quite a development, and that's a big step out of, as you were saying, to take your mind out of the logical mind frame. That's a tight box to be in. And so that was not a small step that you made. You did like standing on the moon kind of leap, you know,
Yeah.
one
Well,
small
I
step for
never was a
mankind kind of thing. Yeah. I
I
mean,
never was a
that
good
was a
engineer.
huge step, genuinely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it cost me my first marriage. So the
Oh,
price of,
I understand that. Yeah.
wearing one mask, here's Terry the engineer, and
Right.
then you got Terry the woo woo psychic medium healer, move
Right.
stuff with his mind, talk to dead people. This was way before that movie with the Sixth Sense came out.
Right.
But yeah, it just felt right. And that's the biggest thing I would have people say to themselves as they examine opening the door into this paranormal realm, the metaphysical, and the spiritual world, is follow your heart and trust what feels right.
Yeah.
If any fear comes up, it's really imperative to understand that fear is from your own mind.
Right.
And, there's this book that you can find in hotel, the little stand next into a hotel. But the big guy in the back part of that book, he said there's nothing to fear outside of ourselves. There's nothing to fear at all outside of ourselves. So all that fear comes from within. And can I share with you what I found works best for newbies to open up the possibility of connecting with their spirit guides and teachers?
By all means, go right ahead.
So every Sunday on our church services, because we got a group of people from around the world that show up on Sundays with us at Spirit 360 Fellowship, I have them put up their left hand, and you put up your left hand and you say, lefty, teacher on my left, hold my hand, make yourself known to me. You want to say this out loud under your breath and just observe what happens. And then repeat, well, I'm feeling a little bit of pressure, maybe a little tingling, maybe a temperature change. Say thank you. And then put your hand down and put up your right hand. Say, here it is, there's my right hand. Put up your right hand and say, hey, righty, teacher on my right, make yourself known to me. And quiet your mind and feel what happens, repeat what you feel. So you got lefty and righty holding your hand. You can sit there and connect with them. The best time to do this as a regular practice is in the morning as you're waking up before you're fully awakened. You don't have to run out of the house, because that's the time you're most naturally open to your psychic abilities. That's why you have a lot of psychic and spiritual dreams kind of in that waking stage between the sleep. So you're awake and you slide down to sleep, and you're asleep and you slide up to wake.
Right.
That's a natural receptive time. So if you reach out and wake up and kind of say, oh lefty, make yourself known to me. The last thing I want to share about this experience, which kind of was misleading for me, and it showed this entity's, her name is Helen. I haven't seen her in a long time. She helped me make the transition into spirituality, and she did her job. I am virtually 100% clairaudient. And as such, I was able to hear spirit guides and teachers much earlier than I could see them.
Right.
And Helen, stepping so close, was projecting so solidly, I could see her with my psychic sight over laying over my physical sight, because it was really dark in the room. And spirit is going to communicate with you in the way you're most accustomed. So if you close your eyes and say apple, and you see a big, pretty apple, then you're most likely visual. If you say apple and you get this abstraction of an apple, then you're probably auditory. And if you say apple and you kind of get this sensation of an apple, maybe even a taste of an apple or a smell of an apple, you're sentient. And so your teachers are going to communicate with you in the way you normally are. So when I put my hands up like this, I don't ever see my teacher, but I feel them, I experience them, and I get a visualization of them as I would an apple, even though I don't see the picture. So when you're doing this, just describe what you feel, and then that trains your spirit guides what works for you, and then they'll refine it and make it stronger, because they have to learn how to really communicate with you strongly. And if you do that and trust that there's only benevolence over there, that it's going to be that way, and anything that shows up that's pleasant, beautiful, is really a conversation from your past that you're bringing forward into the experience. So that's
interesting.
I guess the biggest thing I spend my time training people to do is that there's really no evil spirits. There's ignorant spirits, but we have to just train them how we want to be communicated with, and it usually works pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm a medium and have been, and a psychic my whole life, and so I understand what you're saying. And what I love about what you're sharing is that, in my experience, I find that people have someone on their left and their right that I see, and hear. And so I love that, accessing them directly, because I can tell you from communication with people's guides that there's some that are waiting and trying, leaving hints and clues, and they would love, there's nothing your guides want more than to actually connect with you as an individual. And so I love this concept. I think it's beautiful and amazing, because you're going right to the source, and do not pass go, just collect your $200 in your mind. Basically, your guides are there to help you in every stretch of the imagination, and they're with you the whole ride. And there are guides that do come and go, like Helen from another life, that will assist you and help you with your journey. But I love that direct access concept. I've never heard that before. I think that's amazing.
One of the advantages I had is I started with a blank slate, because I had no real verifiable psychic or mediumship experiences before I was trained to do so.
Gotcha.
And I happened to have this wonderfully analytical, pain in the ass, logical brain.
Right.
I had to map it out, step it out, and go step by step. And because of that, I am able to tap into people wherever they are, whether they're a natural medium and psychic like you are, who's had you probably had a very safe place you grew up where it was okay to be psychic and medium.
Actually, I did. Yeah. I was fortunate that way.
I would, anything I came up with that I wasn't supposed to know, I learned by Pavlovian response that was not acceptable.
Right.
So I would get the spare the rod, spoil the child, and I ain't spoiled by any stretch of the mean.
Right.
But that's the main thing for people to realize is it's a gift.
Yeah.
And to get really good at the gift requires a lot of effortless effort to train your mind to see what's there instead of what you want to or expect to be there. So that's that's where I deal mostly with people in our training classes, is that your mind really isn't your friend. It's a 3-year-old child that will say, no, why, you can't make me, every time you try to tell it to do something.
Yeah.
And it has a tendency to fill in the blanks, and usually not in a kind, benevolent way that allows people to realize the beauty of the people that have chosen to be around them.
Right. No, I found that to be true. I have a funny example for that. My husband is legally blind. He only has 10% eyesight. And so he will tell me frequently when something, he goes, I know there's not a cow in front of us, but I could swear to you that there's a cow in front of the car right now. It's just the way his eyes work. So yeah, and I'm all too familiar with that, where our brain tries to fill in what we don't understand or what we're not sure about. So tell me, because we've got people that are going to be listening to this and watching this, for everyone involved that's going to watch this later or listen to it, Terry, what is your goal with your communication with people in training? What would you like to see? What would you like people to know about what you're doing?
In my experience, everybody has had at least a handful of experiences they cannot explain with their physical senses.
Okay.
For the most part, those get pushed back in the back burner. They get tucked away on that closet shelf in the back, and most people just, I can't deal with that. So with my work, the first thing I want to do is have people realize that everything that Jesus talked about, everything that Buddha talked about, everything Muhammad, Krishna, and all the great masters throughout the history is available to you.
Right.
If you're willing to open the door to it and train your mind to be your servant instead of you its servant.
Right.
And being able to start a meditation practice allows you to lower the noise in your brain, and get it down to where you can hear the the language of spirit's what I call it today. The language of spirit, which is this beautiful energetic signal that is available to all of us. You know, everyone talks about oneness. Everyone talks about we can connect with one another.
Right.
And it's that energy level that is it. And I specifically started Spirit 360 Fellowship to reach people where they do not have a spiritualist church in their backyard.
Right.
And or places where it's not safe to even think about spiritualism, where they still punish there's still a consequence to not being mainstream religion.
Right.
So every time someone from the Bible Belt shows up on a Sunday, it's like a personal little victory for me.
Yeah.
The other thing for me is to normalize the feeling of connecting with energy. And the biggest problem I see, I deal a lot with empaths, highly sensitive people, and intuitive feelers. And the biggest problem I see, you get this undifferentiated information. It comes in. But is it about me? Is it about that person over there? Is it about a generalized situation? Or is it coming from spirit? So you have you have three different sources of information: your own intuition, ESP, outside world recognition, or mediumship, connecting with the spirit guide or teacher. It's undifferentiated. So you don't know what the heck you're supposed to do with this information, if anything. So the first thing we train people to do is to take this omnidirectional psychic antenna we've got, because where I'm from, we say that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums.
True.
So you have this omnidirectional antenna.
Right.
So we get you to take it to a directional antenna and learn how to tap into your own intuition first with very specific, verifiable practices.
Right.
Once you can kind of stop guessing and start to feel the difference about knowing, then we get you to take that that directional antenna and point it to things outside your vibration to develop your ESP. And if you're pretty good at intuition and pretty good at ESP, then you take that directional mind and you start to get information from them in verifiable, pragmatic, tangible ways. That's why I'm the Stoic Medium. And
gotcha.
Because it's just really pragmatic, black, white, you did it or you didn't.
Right.
Then after you can differentiate, oh, that's my stuff, that's their stuff, that's spirit stuff.
Right.
Then you can bring out the omnidirectional again, because you can discern what the information is. And more importantly, when some weird ass information comes in, someone walks in the room and you feel somehow very uncomfortable, very threatened. You know that there's something really wrong over there.
Right.
Then you can tap into your intuition to say, what should I do? Should I run? Should I give them a smile? Should I give them a hug? So you can use your own intuition to interpret the information that you've received and not be left with, what the hell do I do with this?
Yes.
Because that's the biggest problem I see with most untrained empaths, is they don't have any idea what the hell to do with the information. And if they make the wrong choice, people ostracize them, they hate them, they feel lonely, isolated, and that's not a fun place to be.
Well, no, and what you're saying is completely accurate, because I know from my own experience and from friends, being a sensitive is overwhelming. And I know as my younger self, going to public places that were very crowded was beyond my ability to handle. I had so much trouble as a younger person until I got a handle on things, because people would walk by with their own energies going on, and I had no filter. I had no protection. I literally was just, as you said, the antenna thing. I was a wide open antenna all the time. It's like I had a giant satellite dish on my head. And so everybody's whatever would come wafting over to me, and I would feel sick, or I would feel dizzy, or I would feel angry. And it was like, I'm not angry. What is that? You know, all of that, you know, sensory overload. And for me, it was visual. I would see things in people around them. I would hear things, and the sensations in the body were incredible. And even to this day, as a medium, and I don't know if people that don't know this, if you don't know this, I'll explain this for half a second. When you do a reading, a lot of times you'll sense how someone died. So if someone died from a breathing issue, I'll have trouble breathing for a second, or a heart issue, my heart might hurt. There's all these other senses that kick in. Of all the normal senses are experienced in another way. So I love that you're approaching this in a systematic fashion to help people sort out where, number one, where's it coming from, and to help deal with it, because I think there's a lot more sensitives than we realize. And I think that the service that you're providing is vital, because I was fortunate. I found a training when I was 16 in San Jose, California, and it's still there. It's now called the San Jose Psychic Institute. That saved my bacon. That helped me to tame my inner child from going apey, hearing and seeing things all the time. So I totally understand and appreciate it. And I'm so glad we have YouTube to work in this arena and share this information with people. So in their own homes, in the privacy of their homes, you can listen and watch if you want and learn how to separate what's you and what's coming from other people. Because that's incredible.
Yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose if you're
Yeah.
not trained.
That's a great analogy.
And what we do is we give you a nozzle that you can start to turn it down, and then
Nice.
you used to feel lonely because it's not noisy in there from everywhere else. It's noisy for
Right.
other reasons. So then when you're ready, you can turn the volume back up again and start letting things back in.
Nice.
So I want to share this one with you. I mentioned I am
Sure.
clairaudient. So probably about 4 months after I started my training as a psychic and medium, I was sitting at the end of one of my meditations, and I was sitting in a closet because it was really noisy outside, and it's the only place I could get some privacy and block out a lot of the noise. And I had finished, and I was sitting there, and it was one of the first times I really took the edge off of my narcissism and my psychology and my personality, and I really got a sense of quietude. First thing that shows up is I felt someone standing right in front of me. I'm sitting down on the ground, kind of in a I'm going to call it cross-legged because it wasn't a half lotus or anything like that. It was nothing that I'm not that flexible. But someone was standing right in front of me, eye level, while I'm sitting on the floor. It was my joy guide, and he started singing that song from Sound of Music. Do, a deer, a fiend.
Oh yeah, I know that song.
He sang that and sang the whole damn song, and my mother loved it. And for the next week and a half, it was like that movie. Was it Ghost or with 99 bottles of the beer on the wall?
Yes.
I kept on hearing that song all the time.
Right.
And every time my mind got quiet. So his name is Christopher. He projects about 6.5 years old. He looks like a Buster Brown kind of error, missing one tooth and a big permanent tooth right next to it. And he smiles, and he would pop in my head with this damn song.
Nice.
Still don't like the song.
Right.
I love it. I love the memory.
Yes, that's awesome.
So, yeah. So
that's wonderful. What a neat connection.
Yeah. He is one of those people who, if you've ever heard the out of the mouths of babes.
Yes.
Here's a young guy who just will knock you away with some of his youthful wisdom.
Yeah.
That is just unvarnished in a way that's so pure, it's not even funny.
That's amazing.
The last paranormal one that I really, okay. So this guy's Nathan. He stands over here. He's my kind of general companion guy, dressed as a Men in Black type of suit. So he says, okay. So as I mentioned, I'm not very clairvoyant. So every time I see an image, it's kind of like I see thought forms cloudy. So it's like someone has a Polaroid picture. If you've ever seen one of those Polaroids,
yeah.
And I'm looking at the back of it, and then when I get a clairvoyant image, it's like they turn the half developed Polaroid around, and I get this glimpse, kind of a half, no color, no. So it's like this. But I take in the whole image.
Gotcha. While
I was learning how to do this, I was in a dark circle. We call seances dark circles because it's more for physical mediumship, and a lot of people bring baggage with the term seance. And I'm standing there, and we're going around the circle, giving messages and having some fun. And there's a nice image right in the middle of the circle. I can't remember what the hell it was. And all of a sudden, I felt someone standing very close to me on the left side who wasn't Nathan. So normally Nathan is right here. He works with me in healing. He works with me, general companion. So I quieted my mind, and I extended my awareness to my left. And there was a 7-foot tall black Maasai warrior standing right next to me
Wow.
completely naked, and
Oh boy.
his maleness was right here,
Oh,
right by my
okay.
head and shoulder. So I
Oh
look up
my.
and I see, yeah,
Oh
my
boy.
boss exactly. So
Oh
one
my
of my first
goodness.
clairvoyant images was Helen, but then I had this Maasai warrior standing right next to me, 7 feet tall, just with his full manhood right next to my face.
Holy
And
smokes.
I did not trust what I saw.
Okay.
And then the person across the circle from me said, "You know, there's someone standing right next to you with very few clothes on." I said, "I'm not seeing any clothes."
Oh my
Because well,
gosh.
I didn't want to scare you.
Right. No, I get it.
So that was my uh, the other etched in stone memory that the feeling of just
Funny.
having, and this gentleman, he probably had 3% body fat. His
Right.
skin was the most velvety uh, black I've ever seen. Just gorgeous human being. His
Right.
smile was just infectious. His eyes were so compassionate you would just fall
Right.
into them. And he had a spear on his the hand away from me,
Right.
and he could have taken my life if he had wanted to, he was a real
Right.
person. But this is benevolence, gentle, kind soul who was totally at home with who he was in his own body, and came
Nice.
in to me because I was going through some, men in our culture right now have some challenges about, do we be manly men, or do we be,
Correct.
gentle men, or do we be woo woo
Right.
men? And I was really struggling with this. Most of the time, the typical view of a medium is not kind.
Agreed.
Uh, and we're kind of in the fringe. A lot of people don't trust it, and most people, I think deservedly so, think that a great deal of mediums are, not as good as they think they are.
Correct.
And this guy came in to just really said, he was a healer. He was in his tribe. He was the shaman, and
Right.
he came in to just say, you can be yourself and be everything you are, and be a psychic and medium as well. And
Right.
that opened the door to me to really get to the gift of the psychic and healing arts, is the healing part of the arts.
Right.
And if you learn to be a good medium and a good psychic, you'll be a really good healer, because you
Yes.
can do things with your mind that can facilitate an acceleration of healing for others and
Yes.
yourself. That's to me the worth the price of admission.
Yes. Agreed. I actually had an experience with a First Nations person, an Indian woman came to me in my 20s, and it was at a time when I was physically sick, tremendously sick. Doctors weren't sure what was wrong with me. I had a severe case of anemia that just would not go away, and medicine wasn't working. And I remember I slept a lot and I would dream a lot. And this one day, and I was wide awake, sitting in my bedroom. I lived in Lake Tahoe, Nevada at the time. Beautiful place, lots of energy there, wonderful place. And she came up to me, just as plain as day, and said, "You're a shaman." And I went, "A what?" And she said, "You're a shaman." And I went, "I don't know what that is, but thank you. I think. I don't know." I had to go to the library. This is before the internet, to give you an idea. This is a while ago. And I had to
I
look
remember
up what
those
that
days.
word was. I had never heard it. I'd never heard it. And I have to be completely candid. I've never studied shamanistic arts. I've read a few things and watched a few things, but I have found that experience that as I've been a medium and psychic most of my life, things tend to blend together and heal as when I do readings for people, because answers come up, and things that are soothing to the psyche often are soothing to the body as well. And so it kind of goes hand in hand. And it's been a wonderful journey for me. I mean, I have so many wonderful stories, as I'm sure you do too. Um, Working with people in this way is a blessing, and it has been a curse at times, but genuinely, I know what the purpose is now. I get it. And it's worth every minute of time that I spend. Um, I really find it to be a true enlightenment for me to find answers to things that I would have no earthly way of finding otherwise. So I love that.
The part that's always so Tao Chuan Ling stands on this side. He's a Chinese priest, and
Okay.
he basically thinks that all we are as mediums are radio stations, and we tune into the right frequency and we repeat what we hear.
Okay.
And so every time someone will say, "Oh, you, Reverend Terry did something," I said, "No, I'm just the radio." In fact, as soon as I say "bless you" and I move on to the next person, I don't remember whatever the hell we talked about because it goes in and out short-term memory.
Yes.
And so every Sunday, if someone gives me some type of compliment or kudos, I say, look, I appreciate it. But here's what I am good at: is I'm good at staying tuned to the station.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest part that I would have people really consider. That inside of you are the answers you need.
Agreed.
Whether you want to hear them or not.
Yes.
And all a good medium does is remind you of what your spirit guides and teachers every night when you go to sleep. They drag your little butt out of your body and go off and try to teach you stuff.
Right.
And that's kind of like when you wake up a little bit too fast and your spirit's not there and you go, It's like, they're out training you to deal with what you wanted when you came here. And
right.
If you are a good medium, it trains you to be selfless.
Yeah.
Because nothing I do is for me.
Correct.
And everything I do is for those who knock. And that's the biggest thing I take away from being a spiritualist. So we're independent spiritualists. We're not part of any of the national organizations because we believe in reincarnation and we're not Bible-based. So that's kind of the biggest different distinctions. But being a spiritualist is allowing people to have a place to knock where hopefully when the door is open, that they have a safe place to explore things that are not safe to talk about in most of the regular world.
Exactly.
And, that's the part that I think the world needs right now is people who are more allowing themselves to express who they are.
Yes.
And while they're on a journey to discover why they're here.
Yes.
And on a quest to get to where they're going. And be okay doing that. And all of the spiritual growth and development practices have a way of pulling back the layers of the onion that stand between you and that authentic self. And once you tap into that authentic self, two things happen. You'll start to really recognize in your spirit guides and teachers why they chose you.
Right.
But then you'll start to really attract other people of like minds and kindred spirits.
Yes.
That make your life more fulfilling. And that's the part that is the hidden gem of what spiritual growth and development work is. Rediscovering who you are and allowing yourself to recognize who you attract that's of like mind and kindred spirit. Right. And then you can have all these little silly smiles and inside jokes with someone because they know what the hell they're seeing and know what the hell you're seeing at the same time.
Right. So. Well, and I love that because genuinely that's kind of what I felt like. I felt like I found Tinkerbell. It was like I found Neverland. It was a relief and this incredible joy to connect with spirit in this way and have it be okay that it's natural for me to do that. I mean, when we talked, going back just to briefly, so I did grow up in a home where I could talk to my mom about what was happening to me, but I didn't talk to any of my siblings. I didn't talk to my neighbors. But my mom gave me that window of opportunity to have support and encouragement. But it was still awkward growing up to go out of my home and have all these experiences and have no way to filter safely and talk about it. I had very few opportunities to do that. So as I've gotten older, this is a delight to be able to talk openly about all these things that have happened and hopefully to encourage other people. That's the whole reason for my podcast is I don't want people to have to wait. I want people to be able to have it as soon as they feel ready or curious. Having experiences is natural, and it is woo-woo still in many circles, and I get that, but woo-woo is okay. It's okay to talk about things that are different. And I think it's great the way you're connecting the ability to allow people to not only sort out what's happening to them, but to actually develop it to make it a smoother life. Because I do feel like that's our biggest battle, is when we get stuck in a life moment and don't know how to move forward. We all have those times. We all have those experiences, psychic or not, makes no difference. And so if you can get a glimpse, and I think that's honestly why I'm psychic, is because I feel like I've been given the opportunity to help people. I know people have intuition that they don't listen to. I believe it's in all of us. I genuinely do. And the fact that I'm able to talk with people and help them connect with that other side, like you're describing, I love that. If I can help somebody hear what their guides have been trying to tell them and help them, I do believe people have their own answers, Terry. I totally agree with you 100% on that. I do believe that that's definitely a big part. And it looks like we lost him just for a second. Oops.
Part that is most amazing to me about where we are in history is, the pandemic was a royal pain in the keister, but it forced people to do two things. One, break their ruts in the routines,
Right.
and it allowed people to connect with others in ways that, who knew about Zoom 5 years ago?
Right.
A few business people, a few other people, but the typical person, didn't understand anything about Zoom. And as we go through life and look at the situation we find ourselves in, and what's the meaning, what's the purpose, why is this happening to me? And as you mentioned, so many of us have that intuitive knowing, but it's in a tug of war with our instinct to survive.
Right. Oh yeah.
And our personal truths, that were given to us by the tribes we were raised in. My tribe said any of this stuff was witchcraft. Your tribe, you had one person in your tribe that said, "Okay, you can talk about this here." So that tug of war has us often opt for survival instead of creating something that's thriving. And your intuition will take you down the path that is more on the thriving side and authentically you. And that's part where I'm genuinely excited about things right now. Hollywood has done a disservice to our abilities and what happens in the spirit world, and some of the things that are entertaining are in no way accurate. There's a few golden threads of truth out there, but most of them are just highly sensationalized to sell movie tickets. And once you open this door, did you say Pandora's box, or was it something else? I don't think it was you. You did say Pandora's box?
Oh no, I'm turning off my sound so I can hear you better. Sorry. Okay. That's the name of my podcast, and it's from Pandora's box.
I knew Pandora was right.
Yes.
Once you open Pandora's box, what comes out is not mischievous unless you're trapped in the world of instinct. If you start to really see and trust what you know and allow that knowing to illuminate your path before you, it's not going to make the path any better, any less rocky, any more, but you'll walk that path with a comfort in knowing that you're not a victim, you're responsible for everything, and you can handle everything.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest gift people need right now, is to trust themselves that they can handle whatever they find themselves in.
Right.
And, the psychic and the healing arts are tools that we can use to get a better sense of what's going on within ourselves and with those around us. So
that's wonderful. And I do believe it is a healing art. I know that people that I do readings for on a regular basis, it's oh yeah, that's it. That connective moment of, that's what I needed to hear. That's what I needed to know. And that is such a blessing to be able to share something with someone, and in my own mind, when I get ready to meditate, I actually attribute my gift as me being a tool in the toolbox of life. And so I always meditate, please let me be a good toolbox portion. Let me be the good tool today. Let me be this best tool for this person for this moment type of thought. That's my thought process. And so, because I realize I am a conduit. I am not the answer. I am not in charge of anything. I am literally a vessel, and I accept that and acknowledge that. I'm grateful that I'm able to do that. And as I've said before, I don't have any earthly reason why I have privy to information that I have no business knowing, but I know that I know. And being able to share and help people is my greatest joy. It really is.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's funny about everyone worries about privacy on the internet and stuff like that. It's like,
right.
Be around a psychic for a while where they know everything.
Yeah.
And as soon as you learn to read other people's minds and do these certain types of invasive things, you learn really quickly to shut it off and control it. Because
yes.
You don't want to hear most people's thoughts. It's really boring and very self-centered.
Well, that, and it's overwhelming. And that was one of the first things I learned how to do, was to turn it off, because I don't want to read anybody without their consent. I want people to ask me to do things. I don't want to just get stuff.
I will tell you this one, because after I got divorced from my first wife, I was single for 10 years, and I was dating this one young lady, and at the time I was doing West Coast swing dance, and it was my birthday, and she was going to take me out for birthday dinner. And as she's driving to the place, she couldn't remember the address and how to get there. This is before everyone had a GPS and iPhones and all this other stuff.
Right.
So she reached in the back seat to get her little daytimer thing with the address.
Right.
And as she did so, she thought about the name of the restaurant, and I knew the restaurant.
Okay.
So I told her, "Oh, I can tell you how to get there." I didn't even think about it. This was so just natural because I was pretty close to this person. But she fired me so that was on a Saturday night, and she fired me. She quit dating me on Monday because she thought I had gone through her daytimer and was snooping around, and that was the only explanation she had for me knowing what the restaurant was.
Wow.
After that experience, I started warning people at the beginning of dating them. Every now and then when we get really close, I will be able to finish your sentences and see certain thought forms you have. And my current wife, I basically told her I'm a psychic medium and healer on the very first date, trying to chase her off, and she didn't go away. So we got married 6 months later.
I love that you bring this up, because this is a subject I haven't talked about on the podcast yet, but I can say that this is a phrase that I have had to learn in my adult life. And that is, when I date people, I ask people very politely, please don't ever try to lie to me. Please don't even try, because I will find out. Even when I don't want to know, I will find out. So please don't, because it's not fun. It's yucky. And genuinely, I don't have the ability to shut it all off. So there's things, especially like over a period of time, the more the bond connects you with people. Once I've read for someone a couple of times, I link with them right away when they think about me. I have many phone calls and texts of, I was just thinking about you. I have it happen all the time. It happens every week. And it's like, I'm just used to that. But there's that connection that I think is so valuable, but it's also to the detriment in a personal relationship, because it does change the privacy ratio. It does change the sharing content of how much you're willing to share, and what you get on the other end of things can be way more than you realize. And so, being with a psychic is not easy. It's not easy at all.
Well, we make really good lovers. That's one good thing. So I'll put
absolutely,
I'll put that in the
positively.
When you know what someone needs before they know it themselves, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good tool to have in your
absolutely bag. This is very true.
So the Buddhist practice of detachment is how I survive knowing the lies that are there.
Yeah.
And allowing myself to realize that 80% of all the thoughts that go through someone's mind, even if it's a lie or, an overt or a lie of omission or a direct, bald-faced lie, most of the time it's not consequential.
Yeah.
And
True.
allowing myself to not take anything personally when I get such an intimate look into other people's vibrations, because I mean, when you're with someone and you can see everything, they wear it on their sleeve,
Yes.
and even if they're very close to their vest,
yes.
we can see that too.
Right.
The biggest problem I have in this regard is separating and this comes from my early childhood experiences. Is the reason this person is upset, is it because of me, or is it because of something on their side?
Right.
And my default way of being is it's my fault.
Right.
And that guilt is, I'm just now being able to separate a little bit from that guilt. But most of the time I learn to tune it out.
Yes.
And filter in what I need and what I don't need.
Yeah.
But man, it's a constant vigilance to allow yourself that level of control.
Yeah.
To detach from the noise from other people.
Yes. But I will add to this too. The average person that is not psychically tapped in will tend to assume or think that, for example, when someone looks at them in a sharp way or an aggressive manner, that they must be mad or irritated. And what I've learned in my training is that the average person has 7 things on their mind, none of which are you. And I try to repeat that in my brain, because I do catch stuff sometimes and go, whoa, bad mood, woo, but yeah. And to not
That's
absorb
part of the
it.
reason I'm part of the reason I'm the Stoic Medium, because unless I am about as much, on the introversion scale, I'm about as introverted as you can get.
Okay.
And when I'm in a group of people, I'm like a wallflower. People say I'm stuck up and aloof and all this stuff. I'm just shy as hell. I don't know how to talk to people one-on-one, one-to-one, or if I'm in the front of the room talking, it's no problem.
Right.
But what happens is my thrown way of being is I never smile. I have a very flat affect. I'm just like, so we have grandkids, and every time the grandkids come over, they say, "Is Grandpa T mad at me?"
Oh.
And my wife has to go through and say, "No." So I'm T. So it's T. Show him your happy face, sad face, angry face, and eventually, after enough times, because these are little unmolded, pieces of clay. Oh, that's just Grandpa T's face. Yeah. So, but I have to remember that I look more like a Harley rider than I do a psychic or medium or
so
even a
for
grandpa.
females, we call that resting bitch face. That means you're just whatever. And it's not that you're thinking anything bad. It's not that you're mad. You're not angry. It's just the way your face looks. And it's not, you're not trying to be oogie. That's just where it is. Yeah. I get that.
And we forget about that because so many times we receive our information independent of our physical senses.
Right.
So you can tap into the benevolence of someone, and regardless of their outward packaging, you understand what's going on, and they're happy, and that's just the way they are. And every now and then, when you get around someone who only interacts with the world with their physical senses, it's like, man, what a confusing place it must be.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Well, I want to ask you, is there anything else you would like to share about what you do with your information on the internet and people contacting you? What is it that you would like people to know?
The best thing to do, if you in any way are curious, go to spirit360.org.
Okay.
Peruse through the website, see what we do. If it makes sense, you can join our community. If it doesn't make sense, go find a different community. The
Right.
biggest thing I would like you to realize is with the way things are right now, you can find a group of people who is of like-minded kindred spirit. And if you find a place where you fit in, join it, see what's out there, and allow yourself to start meditating.
Right.
There's all you mentioned my YouTube channel is the Stoic Medium. We're going to start posting content again soon. We had
Yeah.
about a 2.5-year hiatus because we had one viral video that just gave us about 1,500 people in 2 weeks to
Yeah.
the website and signing up. So basically broke all the systems. Now the systems are back in place, and we're going to start putting out content again.
Good.
But allow yourself to follow that link, follow that click. And if it ends up that, the Stoic Medium and Spirit 360 is it, right? We have our online school is Old Soul Academy, and that includes a licensed practitioner program and a spiritualist minister ordination program, or just for your own personal growth and development. We're relaunching it right now, so it looks a little bare in there, but we're getting the content added as quickly as we can.
Nice. That's nice. So I'm curious about one thing. So what about the paranormal amazes you?
How effortless the effort is. The harder you try, the less likely you will be to succeed. And allowing yourself to start seeing rather than looking for answers, start hearing instead of listening for answers, and start understanding instead of figuring it out. It's just that, what you resist persists, and it looks like I've got a bad connection right now.
Yeah, that's okay. It'll clear up when we're done.
Okay. But that's the thing, just how effortless the effort is. And intention is the biggest context you can have. Really set a pure intention, and then your heart will do what it needs to do to attract to you the resources you need for your next step.
That's great. Love that. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Terry, for coming on today and speaking with me. And for all of our listeners, we just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We're very glad to have your attention for a little bit and share this information with you today. Thank you for joining us. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you at our next video. Thank you for listening to Holly's Pandorium. If you have stories to share, you can find me on hollyspandorium.com, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and our wonderful Metal Cross Radio at radioking.com. Thanks again for listening.